everything, every minute detail that you work on is judged as a litmus test. Anything that goes wrong, it's not looked as a mistake, it's looked as a intellect issue. It's a very unforgiving culture.
Unforgiving. If you can just draw some parallel or some trajectory which students can also see, okay, acha, these are the skills, this is the money you get, these are the skills and things that you do, and this is the kind of money that you can expect. Welcome back to another episode of My First Job. In this episode, we have Varnika Chaturvedi, who was an engineer. From engineering, she changed her careers to management consulting, and from management consulting to working in an AI startup. We'll see her journey through and through. And through her journey, we want to cover what were some key decision-making points in her career which probed her or prompted her to take different career trajectories. She also speaks a lot about skill stacking and how you can build careers for the future. So if you want to be irreplaceable, this is the episode for you. Sit back, relax, and we have a lot of things to cover. You got consulting shortlist, you cleared the interview, you joined Accenture. Compared to your life when you had that engineering job versus now, what was stark differences in your lifestyle and the kind of nature of work that you were doing, and how did you feel about it?
Engineering type of work is deterministic. It's either right way to do it or it's a wrong way to do it to a very large extent. So even if you look at the technical part of things, you know something is going to work and the other thing is not going to work. There might be better and worse things in that right way, but there's always deterministic. But in business, nothing is, it's everything is probabilistic. There is a chance it may go right, there's a chance it may go wrong. Nothing is absolute black or white, it's all gray. It's all depends on the way you want to value things, the way you want to say things. Like it's a weighted average of different parameters, right? So depending on who is taking the decision, things can change.
Right.
So it becomes a game of people management. It becomes a game to understand why would you see it differently than me. So if I were you, how would I look at it? When it comes to selling a product, how do I know what would customer look for? So things became very different for me. I was very used to the technical part of things. If I know this is the right way to do it, this is the right way to do it. I did not have to balance priorities. I did not have to balance opinion. I did not have to get stakeholder buy-in for everything, right? But when it came to business strategy consulting, that was the biggest challenge for me. That you spend doing the hard work the least amount of time. You can create a deck, you can create the data analytics part of it, but then there's a lot of back and forth on what they want to see. After every exec review, they would want to slice and dice the data in a different way because it's not bringing out what they want to see. So how do you build that kind of thinking that you know what you want to see and what the client would want to see, or what any stakeholder would want to see, what's in there for them? So that idea of convincing people, working around people who are slacking, working around people who are extremely proactive, working around people who are insecure, it's very difficult field and territory to deal with. And that was something I was completely shielded in my engineering job.
Correct.
Because
Wow.
I was an IC. I used to do my job, I give it to my manager and let him handle it. Even even a manager at a technical level might not be dealing with this part of business
Absolutely,
complexity.
yeah.
You don't have to speak up in meetings too much. You just need to get your Jira done. That's
Right,
it.
right.
But it changes drastically when you are put in a people's role.
How do you adapt it? Because do you think that you had to again put in those extra efforts to kind of match the pace that for others that may come naturally, or they might have a similar work experience and they're working with you? Do you feel that you had to put in extra effort or work to
It took me a significant amount of time to accept, first of all.
accept? Okay.
So first 6 months, I just used to rant. That, this is a very hollow job. That what do? I just do my job and then I do back and forth and back and forth. Why could they not tell me in the beginning itself that you want to see this view? Why did you ask me to do everything so many times?
And then later tell me that you want to
tell me that.
Yeah.
And it took me a significant amount of time to know that iteration is the process.
Wow.
What happens is when you rant about stuff, no, you create that negative association.
Correct.
So every time I would work on that thing, I would not want to work on it because it does not make sense. If I do this anyway, he would come to me and say that he wants something else. So why do I put my entire soul and energy into making this right? So that perception took me a while to finally accept things and change myself. That personality change was really difficult. It still gets difficult at times because even when you are working in founder office, priorities are fleeting. Every morning, by the end of every evening, the priorities shift completely. And when you are put into high growth, fast paced environments like startups or consulting, it becomes a luxury. So that is a personality shift I still struggle with. That engineering part of me still does not leave me very much. So it still believes in the idea that if it's mentally something is difficult, then it's worth my time.
Got it. Okay.
But if something is
I hear
easy
you.
but overwhelming, I don't want to do it. So that is something I still struggle with.
I hear you. That's so well put. I mean, I love how you have used perfect terms to distinguish this the deterministic way of working and probabilistic way of working. And you coming from the former, you had a slightly tougher time to adjust your thinking to probabilistic way of thinking and doing things.
Correct. Yeah.
Awesome. I just want to talk about the lifestyle also. I'm sure we all know how consulting lifestyle is. You travel a lot, you get to visit places, and it's also extremely fast paced. So, and I sense that you're a very big proponent of work life balance, that you want to probably have your own time as well. How do you find that in consulting?
So luckily for me, I did not have many travel cases,
Mm-hmm.
and also Accenture has remote work for non-travel cases mostly.
Okay. Okay.
So it was safe that way.
Uh-huh.
But traveling is exhausting. It looks glamorous from the outside. Instagram stories, it looks like you're living in 5 stars, but it can feel very hollow. Everything, every minute detail that you work on is judged as a litmus test.
Oh, okay.
Anything that goes wrong, it's not looked as a mistake, it's looked as a intellect issue. It's very easy to point fingers in consulting. That's what I have experienced, at least in people I've talked to, that it's a very unforgiving culture.
Unforgiving.
That was also a major shocker because in engineering roles as a software engineer, you're expected to make mistakes. So because of my code error one time, my entire payments got stalled. The company payments got stalled. And still my manager did not say a word to me. You fix it. In coding, it is bound to happen, right? So I came from that mindset of
Right.
problem that you can make mistakes. It's okay. You need to own and fix those mistakes. That's the best you can do. But I did not feel that in post MBA world. Mistakes were not so healthily accepted.
Got it.
It became very easy to judge people for mistakes. The pace is so fast, you cannot afford to make mistakes. Even if they allow you for the initial time, and even if nobody is judging you or supervising you for it, वो internally एक loop बन जाता है कि if you go, you make a mistake, you don't have time to fix it. Somebody has to bear the brunt of it. So it is very unforgiving that way. And bandwidth नहीं बचता है, willpower नहीं बचता है to do something else.
You did that for a while and then you segued into working for a startup, right? Again, speaking from your personal experience and the anecdotes that you had previously shared, that transition doesn't come easy to you because again you have to let go of a stable income to pursue something unknown in that uncharted territory again. So was that decision out of frustration, or was it for again to explore more and to see what more you can do?
There were quite a few things I realized about consulting in general, nothing to Accenture or anything, but consulting makes you good at many things, but it does not really give you the exposure to build a niche into anything.
Okay. Okay.
So you work on such contrast industries, like I worked on pharmaceutical distribution, then I moved to oil and gas, then I moved to chemicals, and doing very different problem statements in different industries. But then when I went for interviews, I did not really have one tangible hard skill that I could say that I have.
Huh.
So it's a lot of intangible, transferable skills, but not the industry is not very welcoming to those skills because they still want someone who's knee deep into operations, who knows the industry in and out. But you don't bring that kind of expertise. So the
Okay,
longer you
okay,
stay, that is what I felt
Mhm.
when I talk to people, that the longer you stay in consulting, the harder it becomes for you to exit consulting.
Oh, I've heard that so much.
And as you move up in the organization, you get tagged to certain type of problem statement or a certain industry, and then it kind of becomes repetitive. Because the whole point of getting into strategy was to explore new projects, but you cannot escape repetition after a while in your work life. That will eventually come. You will build a niche set of skills and you would find that work again and again. So that scared me. The idea of staying too long in consulting scared me because I felt that as my personal obligations would grow in life, it would not be sustainable for me to manage work and
Yes.
life simultaneously. But when I joined that startup, I realized that I cannot be in denial about working fast. That is the path I've chosen for myself post MBA. Everything that I would work in would be fast paced. Even startups
Very
or
good.
whatever roles in future I would have, they would all be high growth, fast paced. So I cannot run too far away from it.
Got it. And that's in anything that you do, because once you pass that barrier, you're expected to perform at roles and positions which require to be of a certain pace and be at a certain
Correct.
distance. So now, in the startup you're working with, how did you transition, and at what point did you quit Accenture and started working with this? And this being a product space, how do you feel? What are the differences, and probably what are some skills from service-based industry you are using or utilizing here?
So I think I had completed 1.5 years at Accenture before I started looking out.
Okay.
And consulting का 1.5 years is regular industry का 3 years easily.
Yeah.
So I had worked on a lot many different projects. The good part about consulting is you always have scope to perform +1 activities. So while you are on a project, you can still take part in BDs, so business development, RFP work. So you get to understand how service-based companies sell services. So how to sell intangible assets. How do you sell your thinking? So there used to be like what 100 200 pager documents, RFPs, that we used to create and personalize for every client tender. So these were some of the +1 activities that I was doing, which gave me insight into how do you sell stuff. Because at an analyst level in a consulting, you hardly get to be a part of it. It's usually a partner's job to find projects, sell projects, and all of that. I also felt one of the reasons to leave consulting was also that I come from an engineering background, a CSE background. I felt that those skills weren't getting used too much.
Okay.
I wanted to get into something software related, so that I can also bring that skill set, technical skill set from there, because I would be able to understand how technologies work.
Correct.
So I wanted to get into PM role, because again, good choice, easy, safe landing option. They would want me. But now, when I went into the market, I realized things have changed very much from that COVID period. The boom in PM jobs was crazy in COVID and after, like 21, 22 time period. But now, after AI, the overall hiring in PM domain is dropping. So when I went into the market, there were another set of learnings. I realized, what do I sell? How do I sell myself? To the recruiter and to my own self. After every rejection, you question yourself that what am I doing so wrong? I thought I had the perfect CV. Why am I failing? Why am I not getting a call back? Because the conversion percentage is really low in the job hiring market. Like you would also know that it's really bad. Things are much easier on campus because there are people lined up to take you. But when you go in the market, you realize you are not as valuable as you thought you were. So you need to strip down your ego, realize that you have to work really hard and work hard in the right direction. You need to understand what the direction is, what is working and why is it working. So there were a lot of founder office roles calls that I was getting. I was not entirely sure I wanted the same, because again, you would think that somebody who is 5 years into the work life, your workforce would be very sure of the decisions they are making, but
Mm.
nobody is. Everybody is learning things on the go. So I did not know if I really wanted a founder office role. But then when I gave few interviews, I realized it's very much like having an in-house consultant. So it would
Okay.
be like doing that
In-house
consulting journey, but in an industry.
Got it.
So which gave me the plus points of fast-paced environment,
Mm-hmm.
but industry expertise.
Got it.
Finally, the startup I landed in was at the perfect intersection of, it was an AI startup.
Mm-hmm.
It dealt in fintech, which was like my JPMC experience. So it was like the perfect intersection of my BTech CSE, my JPMC stint, and then my consulting journey.
Mm.
So that's how I got into it. It has been going well so far. Although the challenges in a startup are again very different from consulting, because in consulting everything is so structured. Everything is
Okay.
planned,
Yeah.
neatly designed.
Mm-hmm.
There are spots to go to. There are people who know the trade in and out.
Mm-hmm.
And there are so many seniors you can go to and ask for help. But when you come in an industry startup where they are still struggling to chart out clean processes, and you are expected to do it, that's part of your job.
Got it. Mm-hmm.
But you don't even know what a customer success function looks like. You have not even heard of it because you were in your silo working on a problem statement,
Mm-hmm.
writing a deck, creating a deck, but you don't know what function enables it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know, once you take that strategy into action, what are the challenges? How do people respond? How do you convince them to accept it?
Mm-hmm.
Those were different kind of challenges altogether. So, for example, as soon as I joined, my first project was executive hiring.
Executive hiring.
So at first, everybody's instinct towards hiring, I don't know why, is very judgmental, right? That इतना पढ़ने के बाद मैं hiring
Hiring करूंगी. I get it.
But so, and I had absolutely no clue how do you do it. Let alone executive one, I don't know how to hire an IC role.
Mm-hmm.
Because usually what we do, that is what we tell an HR to do. We need an opening in our
Correct,
team,
correct.
we need a job.
Mm-hmm.
But then, and thanks to ChatGPT, honestly, I feel it has taken the learning curve too far ahead. If you know how to use it, it's like encyclopedia, even better than that. I don't know what it is. I don't have the term for it.
Mm-hmm.
So you talk to it, you understand what does the function look like, what does it look like in this industry, and you're supposed to deliver that like you have done it before, like you are an expert in the field.
Understood. Hmm.
So, and even if you chart out the most perfect framework there is for hiring, but how do you ensure the operational success? How do you ensure that you teach everybody in the team that this is how you want to do it?
Got it.
And how do you supervise they're doing it correctly? They would make many mistakes, many human mistakes, but that would impact your overall process, that would impact your overall success KPI. But how do you deal with it? That is something I had never done in consulting.
Mm-hmm.
I had never owned anything end to end, I had never executed anything. In consulting, you start with the problem statement that this is we want to fix, and you think from first principle thinking that what is the ideal set of variables that would impact this.
Lovely. Mm.
But in real world, it hardly matters.
Mm.
क्योंकि वो ideal set of variables तक आने के पहले ही
Got it.
there are so many constraints. You don't have the data. You don't have meaningful data. You don't have people doing proper data hygiene. How do you do this data-backed decision making? You struggle with, so initially I struggled so much in asking people to do basic data hygienes in your ATS systems, in your Salesforce CRM systems. You had to explicitly write documents for them,
Oh.
and still people were not following.
Follow it.
So how would you even come to that end goal when you have not streamlined every bit of the process?
Mm-hmm.
So that is what I am enjoying doing these days, which I'd never got to do in consulting.
Mm-hmm.
Because therein you create this 2 by 2 of perfect variables that should impact the problem statement.
Got it.
And you tell the client that if you work on this, you would get this.
Mm-hmm.
The client figure out how he wants to do it. So now I am the client figuring things out, but I am also the consultant who is strategizing for things.
Mm.
So it's a really end-to-end ownership stuff, which I like. And the service-based skills you asked for, I think that perfectionism. So in Accenture, you could not send client anything which is not professional,
Mm-hmm.
which is not easy to read,
Mm-hmm.
and you are not there to guide them line by line. So you have to make your files speak for themselves. You have to make it so clean that you don't have to be in the room for them to
Got it.
understand.
Got it.
So even an Excel is not just data for you, it's storytelling for you. Something very simple as, you need to have the data left to right because the eye moves from left to right. Very small things like those. It mattered. It mattered in Accenture. So when I joined, I used to get scolded for this stuff. That there's not proper formatting. I don't want to see this until it's formatted.
Okay.
So that's how they inculcate that habit of doing everything perfectly. That nothing should reach executives before it's polished. So that is one skill set that helps me so much. Here, when I work with the founder, he does not have to spend his time digging through fluffy data.
Got it. Yeah.
So that perfectionism helps me create my work ethic. That he trusts me. The team knows that if I'm sending a file, it would be explanatory, self-explanatory. So I think that service-based industry skill of just doing things perfectly for the client before you send it out. That helps me immensely.
Lovely. I like how all your experiences has finally culminated into this one thing that you are really passionate about doing at the moment, and it's a mixture of all the different skills that you have learned throughout your life, not just after MBA.
Just one thing I would like to add here. So there is this always you feel that your skill set would be obsolete. Now there's this entire AI thing going on, and you feel that what have I done something that AI can't do? ChatGPT is just immensely good at data analysis part of it. It's crazy good at content generation. So how do I feel that I would not get obsolete? So there was this quote that I read that you create stacks, skill stacks. So if you have very disparate individualistic stacks, like for example, just the engineering talent, just the MBA talent, it would not be difficult to be obsolete, to replace. But if you stack it vertically, then it would be very difficult to replace. So you put engineering, you put fintech, you put bank, you put MBA, and that's how you become more value adding because you bring in a lot of different perspectives, and that's true for anyone. Like whatever skills you are possessing, just stack it on top of each other, not disparate items.
If you can just draw some parallel or some trajectory which students can also see, okay, acha, these are the skills, this is the money you get, these are the skills and things that you do, and this is the kind of money that you can expect.
When I joined JPMC from Manit, I had 14 LPA CTC. It was fairly good at that time for an engineer because it was purely base. So there was no extra fluff of variable. That was all additional. So it was really good amount. So much so that it did not make sense financially for me to do an MBA.
Got it.
Because the ROI of an MBA would be what 25 lakh worth of loan, 2 years of lost income, and then the placement you would get from campus would be what around roughly 20-25 base. But if you grow organically in your role, and if you banks give a lot of money.
Got it.
So if you and also if you eventually move into startups or these tech giants, there would always be more money. So financially, it did not make sense for me to do an MBA, but I just wanted to do it because I wanted to change my type of work from technical to managerial.
Got it.
Then Accenture had 25 ways. Then I moved in, and when I moved to a startup, I got an approximate 30-40% hike. So that's the numbers. Yeah.
Awesome. And you like this lifestyle more because you are anyways now putting in probably same or even more efforts in doing similar things, but you feel more connected to what you do and you have more probably ownership in what you do, which is why you feel this space to be better for you.
I agree. I think ownership is one part of it to feel better, and also secondly, when your opinion starts adding value, you feel important. You feel like you belong. You finally belong. That you know what you're talking about. You have some insight, and the other person is also understanding you are adding value to the team. So it becomes a vicious loop, and it becomes addicting. You add value, they appreciate it, you want to add more value. So you get used to that fast paced, high, like long work hours, or actively putting in efforts. So sometimes what I personally feel in this AI world, you cannot just do what is asked of you.
For sure. Yeah.
because
Mm.
even a prompt can do that. You need to add your value in different ways to be relevant.
Got it. Lovely. So I just have one last question for you. Thank you for your valuable insights. Honestly, some really novel takes. Some again, I love how you have skill stacked even your experiences, because you were drawing from different walks of life, and coming to a point after the culmination of all those events. One last question is, so if you had to DM your younger self probably three pieces of advice or one single piece of advice, what would that be?
I was very insecure. I used to doubt myself a lot. And even though I was very proactively working on those insecurities, but it still was heavy. I did not know what it would feel like to let go of all those baggage and be just free in that preparation.
Mm-hmm.
And that baggage comes back to you in different ways. So it does not let you do mistakes. It makes you risk averse. It makes you think that if a certain thing goes wrong, what will I do? Because you are not secure in yourself. You don't know you can handle it. So the only thing I would like younger version of me to know is, even if anything goes wrong, you'll build it up. But if you don't try, then you never know if it works out or if it doesn't.
Right.
I used to hold back myself so much because of that risk averseness.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm not ready to do it. What if it falls apart? I don't know how to handle it. Nobody knows how to handle it when it falls apart. You only know it when it does fall apart. So unless you make it happen, it won't work, right?
Beautiful. That's a lovely way to conclude our episode. And thank you so much, Varnika, for your time and really sharing valuable insights. I'm sure listeners will find this very value adding. And if they have any questions that they can ask you, they'll for sure comment down below, and we'll make sure that we show you some of them, and you can probably share in your thoughts, and then we can reply to them.
Sure, it's an amazing opportunity. Every time I interact with Inside IM, it's really humbling, because when I was once there, I used to listen to people talk to stuff, and that helped me. Listening to perspectives and seeing that the same troubles trouble everyone's helps you. That you're not alone in this journey, and if they could make it, you could make it too. So I just feel grateful for having this platform to share that insight.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Guys, if you like this episode, please do let us know in the comments below. Also, if you want any other guests from different domains, feel free to let us know. We'll make that happen. Meanwhile, this is Saif from Team Inside IM signing off.